People say prehistoric humans died of old age at 30. Do you believe that? I did, until I actually read those numbers. Archaeologists have found the bones of people who were 50, 60, and even 70 years old, and they were clearly living among their tribes, not dying early. So where exactly did that 30 years old number come from? The answer isn't that prehistoric people were somehow superhumanly stronger than you think. The answer is that you've been lied to by a statistical illusion since you were a kid, and today I'm going to show you exactly how that works. Let's put on our investigative hats for a second. Whenever you hear someone casually drop the fact that the average lifespan in the Stone Age was 30, you immediately picture a 29-year-old caveman having a midlife crisis, writing his will on a cave wall and preparing to drop dead of natural causes by Tuesday. We have this cartoonish image of prehistoric life running on double speed, where you were a toddler at 2, a fully grown hunter at 10, a grumpy senior citizen at 25, and dust by 30. But that is a massive misunderstanding of how the word average actually works. Life expectancy is calculated by taking the total age of everyone who dies and dividing it by the number of people. It's simple math, but simple math can be wildly deceiving. Let me give you an example. Imagine a guy named Bill Gates walks into your local dive bar. Suddenly, the average net worth of everyone in that room is a couple of $1 billion. Does that mean you can suddenly afford a mega yacht? Absolutely not. Outliers completely skew the average. In prehistoric times, the outlier wasn't extreme wealth, it was extreme infant mortality. Being a baby in the Pleistocene epoch was, statistically speaking, the most dangerous job on Earth. Somewhere between 30 to 50% of all children died before their 5th birthday. They didn't have vaccines, they didn't have baby formula, and they didn't have baby-proofed caves. They succumbed to basic infections, minor fevers, stomach bugs, and the occasional hungry predator. So let's do the caveman math. Imagine a tribe with 2 people. One poor kid catches a bug and tragically dies at the age of 2. The other survives childhood, grows up, dodges mammoths, and lives to the ripe old age of 68. Add their ages together, 70, and divide by 2. Congratulations, you now have an average life expectancy of 35 years old. Do you see the trick? The number 30 doesn't measure how fast human bodies aged, it measures the sheer brutal risk of early childhood. 30 years old wasn't an expiration date, it was just a mathematical ghost. Now let's flip that statistic on its head. This is where the emotional reality of our ancestors actually begins. Because the golden rule of prehistoric survival was this: if you could just make it past your 15th birthday, your odds completely changed. Once you survived the gauntlet of childhood, once your immune system figured out how to fight off the local germs and you learned enough not to eat the poisonous berries or pet the wild cave bears, the graph of human survival flattened out beautifully. An adolescent who made it to 15 could easily expect to live another 40 to 55 years. That means it was completely normal for tribes to have 50, 60, and 70-year-olds walking around. And we know this isn't just theory. The fossil record screams this truth at us. We find skulls with teeth that have been ground down for 4 or 5 decades of chewing tough meat and hides. We find joint bones riddled with the kind of osteoarthritis that only comes from half a century of walking. But here is the most beautiful twist in the prehistoric narrative. These elders weren't just abandoned to the wolves when they got slow. They were actively protected. Take the famous fossil known as Shanidar I, discovered in a cave in modern-day Iraq. Shanidar I was a Neanderthal man who lived to be somewhere between 45 and 50 years old, a genuine senior citizen for his species. But life had not been kind to him. He had suffered a massive blow to the head early in life, which likely left him blind in his left eye. His right arm was completely withered, fractured in multiple places, and had been amputated or lost above the elbow. He had a bad right leg, meaning he walked with a severe limp. Oh, and he was practically deaf. In a ruthless survival of the fittest animal kingdom, Shanidar I would have died in his 20s. He couldn't hunt, he couldn't fight, he was a massive liability to a nomadic tribe carrying limited resources. Yet, his bones show that his injuries had healed. He lived for decades after sustaining this massive trauma. Why? Because his tribe fed him. They protected him. They chewed his food when his teeth failed. They carried him or walked at his pace when they migrated. This wasn't some cold, primitive animal society. This was a family.
They saw inherent value in him that went far beyond his physical ability to throw a spear.
Which brings us to the biggest question. If they weren't out there chasing down woolly rhinos, what did these prehistoric elders actually do? Why did evolutionary biology keep them around? Let me tell you 3 mini stories to illustrate why old people were the ultimate prehistoric cheat code. First, the elders were the living library. Today, if you want to know how to fix a leaky pipe or survive a recession, you pull out your smartphone and ask Google or Wikipedia. Our ancestors didn't have the internet. They didn't even have written language. Their entire survival manual was stored in the squishy gray matter of their oldest tribe members. Imagine a brutal drought hits the savanna. The watering holes dry up. The animals migrate away. The 20-year-old alpha hunters are panicking because they've never seen anything like this in their lives. But the 65-year-old grandfather sitting by the fire, he remembers. He remembers the great thirst from 40 years ago when he was just a kid. He remembers that if you walk 3 days toward the jagged mountain, there's a hidden spring inside a cave that never runs dry. In a world before books, the elderly were the hard drives of humanity. They held the data for rare weather events, the locations of emergency food sources, and the knowledge of which plants cured sickness. Keeping a 60-year-old alive was the ultimate insurance policy for the whole tribe. Second, we have the grandmother hypothesis. Have you ever wondered why human women live decades past their reproductive prime? In most of the animal kingdom, once a female can no longer have babies, she dies shortly after. But human women go through menopause and then casually live for another 30 or 40 years. Why? Science calls it the grandmother hypothesis. Simply put, grandma is the reason we conquered the planet. When an older woman stopped having babies of her own, her energy freed up. What did she do with that energy? She babysat. She foraged. She gathered berries, dug up tubers, and watched the toddlers. Because grandma was holding the fort, the child's mother was free to wean her baby earlier, go out foraging herself, and ultimately have more children. The presence of a grandmother directly increased the survival rate of her grandchildren. Grandmas literally gathered the calories that fueled human expansion.
Third, what really killed them? If they didn't magically expire from old age at 30, what actually took them out? Well, the reality of prehistoric death is shockingly mundane. It wasn't always a dramatic duel with a saber-toothed cat. Usually, it was a lack of neosporin. You cut your foot on a sharp rock while gathering firewood. Today, you wash it, slap a Band-Aid on it, and forget about it. 50,000 years ago, that cut gets infected with a soil bacteria. You get a fever, your body can't fight it off without antibiotics, you die at 42. Women tragically died in childbirth because there were no C-sections or sterile environments. Hunters died from minor fractures that healed improperly, leading to fatal blood clots. They didn't die because their human clock ran out of time. They died because they were playing life on the hardest possible difficulty setting, with absolutely zero medical items in their inventory. So, let's put all this into perspective. Let's compare a 50-year-old caveman to a 50-year-old modern guy named Bob. Who is actually older? If we do a split screen, the contrast is hilarious, but maybe not in the way you think. Bob is sitting at his ergonomic office chair, nursing lower back pain, taking medication for high cholesterol, and complaining about his knees. Our 50-year-old caveman? He is absolutely jacked. His bone density is off the charts, similar to a modern professional athlete. His cardiovascular system is immaculate because he walks 10 miles a day and eats exclusively organic wild-caught protein and fresh greens. He doesn't have diabetes, he doesn't have hypertension, and he's never heard of a mid-afternoon sugar crash. But wait, look closer. Bob has reading glasses. Cave Bob's vision has been slowly blurring for a decade, making it hard to see predators in the twilight. Bob takes ibuprofen for a headache. Cave Bob just has to suffer through a tooth abscess with nothing but willow bark to chew on. Prehistoric people didn't age the way we do. They didn't get soft, and they rarely suffered from chronic metabolic diseases of modern luxury. Instead, they wore out. They mechanically ground down like a set of high-mileage tires on a rocky road. Their joints simply eroded from decades of heavy lifting, and their teeth literally wore down to the gum line from chewing tough roots and gritty meat. They were undeniably robust, but without modern medicine, eventually a small piece of the machine would break and the whole engine would fail. So no, prehistoric humans did not die of old age at 30. They died from all the completely preventable things that we have since solved with modern medicine, sanitation, and grocery stores. Or, if they were lucky, smart, and loved by their tribe, they lived to be 70 years old, sitting by a flickering fire, teaching the next generation exactly how to survive the darkness. The next question, of course, is, who is the absolutely oldest prehistoric human ever discovered by archaeologists, and what exactly did they do differently from everyone else to cheat death for so long? That video is waiting for you right here.